A new Hitman video game has just been released titled Hitman 3, and if you're wondering why I'm talking about that in a movie review, I thought since it's released, people might want to see some Hitman content, so I've decided to watch the two Hitman movies that are currently out. In my previous video, I reviewed Hitman from 2007. I didn't have too much to say about it on the positive side, in fact, I don't think I had anything. But today, as kind of like a second part, I'm covering the 2015 movie Hitman Agent 47. Genetically engineered from the conception to be the perfect killing machine, he's the culmination of decades of research endowed with unprecedented strength, speed, stamina, and intelligence. Known only as Agent 47, his latest target is a corporation that plans to unlock the secret of his past to create an army of killers even more powerful than him. With help from a young woman, the elite assassin confronts revelations about his own origins in an epic battle with his deadliest foe. Now, some of those things in that synopsis I would argue, especially epic, but I'll get into that in a minute. But before we get into that, let's look at the scores that IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes have given this movie. In terms of a critic score, Hitman Agent 47 has an impressively bad percentage of 8, whereas the audience score is at a more respectable but not great 40%. And in terms of IMDb, they have given it a 5.7. As you can tell, every score from there is worse than Hitman 2007. But does that mean I find it worse than it? Let's go and find out in my pros and cons. Surprisingly, this one is off to a better start than my last review because I actually have something good to say about it, albeit it's only one thing. This movie does try to give some fan service with tie-ins to the video game franchise, whereas the first one just felt like a character from a video game franchise put into, such a cliche story. This one actually, although not as obvious as they are in the game, it was made for the fans of the franchise where the character has always different disguises like he does in the games where he tries and hides from everyone. And in general, he's just a lot more stealthy than what Timothy Olyphant's Hitman was like. So yeah, I found that a bit enjoyable, but that's pretty much it. Now we're into the main bit of the video, the main event. This movie has a lot of the same mistakes from the 2007 movie. The lead actor, I'm not as familiar with his work as I was with Timothy Olyphant. It's still a very poor performance. He does feel more soulless, but I think that's just down to the acting. It's not actually down to how he was written, because the way things were written, he was following the same tropes from that movie where there's female sidekick who can tend to be a bit of a distraction, and they just try and make him a bit more human, which I don't like. I don't get why they tried doing that in both of these movies. I think somehow the dialogue here is worse than the 2007 movie. It's easy to compare the movies, but that movie's dialogue was awful. This movie has a lot worse dialogue, therefore it was twice as funny. Like there was no chemistry between the two leads. At least in the first one, there's a little bit of a spark. Nothing really, but here, absolutely nothing. Sometimes the dialogue was so bad that the two lead characters, as they're looking at each other, speaking all these lines that have been written for them, you kind of see it in their eyes, that sort of regret they have for signing on to this movie, and you can kind of see them sighing on the inside because it really does get awful sometimes. The action was very bland in the original movie. Here, I'd say it's more frustrating. That movie, from the start, actually the start of that movie was the best part of the action, but then from then on, you know what to expect. It was just bland action. Here, it was hit and miss. You got some really cool scenes, had a lot less cuts in it, so you could see more headshots and all that kind of stuff, a lot more blood. Sometimes it was too CGI heavy, and then sometimes it does contain a lot of cuts, and then just straight up defies all logic with some of its scenes. So it really was frustrating. There was some cool things, but then that was cancelled out by some ridiculous things. The plot, although it had ties into the game franchise, it just felt so ridiculous once again. And just like the other one, very cliche with the, creator wanting to create an army of super soldiers or whatever. Just such a boring concept, so worn thin. Although this movie did give me some more enjoyment because it had more tie-ins to the video game which didn't feel forced. Although this movie had more tie-ins from the video games which didn't feel forced, I actually preferred the more grounded plot of that first original movie. Here it just becomes too absurd and over the top. So although I would actually say I enjoyed this movie more than the original, there was still many problems with this one, and it's still an awful movie. So to my surprise, and probably many people's surprise who are watching this, even though everything indicates that this is an even worse movie than the original from 2007, I actually preferred it more. I don't know if it's because it was more modern and just had some cooler things to it. Even though it had many problems and many lapses in logic, it still had more entertaining things in it than that first movie. So, still not great, and in terms of my score, I actually had it down for 57%, but now that I think about it, I've been talking about it, and I can see I only had one positive. I'm actually going to bring it down to a 54%. There was quite like a respectable difference between the two. Hitman 2007, 49%. Hitman Agent 47 from 2015, I give 54%. And just to clarify, I don't really recommend watching them. Even if you're a fan of the video game franchise, there's a few things which might make you smile for about 2 seconds, but the rest of it, neither of them are good movies, and they have poor dialogue, poor acting, and the plots, you've seen it before. So there are my reviews of the two Hitman movies, this one being Hitman Agent 47. If you haven't seen my Hitman 2007 review, I'll leave a little clickable card up in the corner, and I'll leave a link in the description. Please like and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. And also let me know in the comments what you thought of this movie if you've seen it, and if you have played Hitman 3, the new game release, or if you just are intending on buying it and haven't bought it yet. I'm still unsure whether I'm going to buy it, but if I do, I'll have a review out for that as soon as I finish it. Thank you for watching this video, I really hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in my next video, which it's not really a relevant topic, but as there's like a little period without movies or anything that I can cover, we may just be covering one of the greatest things put to screen in history. I'll just leave you with that little hint.